You're listening to the Simplifiers podcast, episode number 162. Last week we talked about getting into the flow, what it is, and why it's worth simplifying. And it was such a juicy episode. I decided to split it into two parts so that we had time to simmer on it all. Since part one focused on the what and the why, this week we're talking all about the how. My special guest today is, yet once again, the brain guy, Scott Robinson, and he's simplifying how to get into the flow. Remember, the most important thing to keep in mind, no pun intended, is this. When you align these three things, your subconscious beliefs, your conscious actions, and the truth of who you really are, which is known deep, deep, deep down in your superconscious, that's when you achieve flow state. So let's break all of that down and simplify it. Here's how. He shares how to transform any limiting beliefs or residual stress that might be holding you back right now, especially if you have any business mistakes or blunders that are causing you a little bit of self-sabotage. Plus, what the collective consciousness is, and how to utilize this concept as a leader of your team, much the same like a flock of birds or a school of fish moving in unison. And how to tap into a higher intelligence and wisdom. It's going to bring you less anxiety and more sense of calm. And ultimately, how to identify and squash any shared stress that might be lurking inside your workplace, either spoken or unspoken, so that you can become a more conscious business. Scott talks about the wisdom in moving from a physical to a conscious-based reality, and I certainly see some truth in that. If our perception of how the world works is simply built on stories that we've told ourselves since we were very, very little, it does make me wonder, what stories am I ready to let go of? Which narratives may have served me in the first 40 years of my life, but they aren't serving me anymore? What can I surrender, and how nice will it feel when I lay them down? I really invite you to consider these questions and more. Have a journal and a pen ready to jot down some notes while listening to this one. And don't be afraid to press pause anytime you need to. Also, if you haven't heard part one yet of this conversation, I really encourage you to actually go ahead, hit pause now, and go back and listen to that one first. As always, this journey of exploration that we are on is exhilarating, and I'm so glad that you're with me, riding alongside my ride or die as I ask the questions you guys want me to ask. This conversation is such a gift, and I'm so grateful for you tuning in and also sharing it with someone you love. Okay, guys, it's time to simplify. But before we dive into this episode, I want to tell you about a new thing that we're doing over here at the Simplifiers. Once a month, I'm leading a cohort of no more than 10 business owners through the process of creating your own simplified business plan. In 4 short weeks, you're going to get super clear on the 9 key aspects of your business, including defining your unforgettable value proposition, clarifying your ultimate ideal client, setting your pricing strategy, and so much more. So, if you're ready to receive absolute clarity that's going to help you boost your revenue, get unstuck, and be ready to bounce back stronger than ever before, then reach out and do the thing. As an introductory rate, this 4-week program is now offered at $299, and past clients say it's worth every penny. Schedule a free discovery call to see if it's right for you. Visit thesimplifiers.com/hello. That's thesimplifiers.com/hello, and make sure to select the 25-minute call option when you book it in. Easy peasy, super simple. Now, the next cohort starts Tuesday, April 6th, 2021, and the deadline to join us is Friday, April 2nd. And hey, if you're ready to join now and want to bypass the discovery call, hey, awesome. Simply go over to thesimplifiers.com/shop and reserve your spot today. And thank you so much for double tapping that subscribe button. We've got listeners now in 122 countries around the world. So hello to our listeners in New York, Pasco, Edinburgh, and our new friends in Nepal. We're so glad you're tuning in. Okay, It's time now to dive into part 2 of today's episode with the Brain Guy, Scott Robinson, as he simplifies how to get into the flow. Are you ready? Let's dive in. No, you've said so much, and I feel like as a collective, we should all take a nice deep inhale.
Deep breath.
And just download what he just said, because I think there's so much to that that you just shared. And it's so beautiful to just witness you in your flow state, sharing all these things that you've learned working with clients and your own journey of understanding how the brain works. I think...
Can I just share with you really quickly, because this will make sense, exactly what you've just said. So I got up this morning and meditated before we got together.
Yeah.
And then in my meditation, and this is a take home for people, because exactly what I did this morning is exactly what everybody can do, is I just sat down and said, okay, what do we want out of this today? Yes. So, okay, I'm just going to look at the notes that you sent me for what we want to run through today. Roughly, I don't really want to pay a huge amount of attention to them. I just want them in my awareness.
Yes.
And now I'm just going to sit down, and what's my intention? Well, my intention is perfection. Perfection is going to be a consciousness-based reality perfection, as in I want the universe working for me, give me the information that I need so that I can just be in the flow state and just give the perfect information that this lovely lady on the other end of the call is looking to receive. And then we just end up finding ourselves in a monologue, and then I get a comment back saying like, wow, you're just in a flow state. That was beautiful. And which is exactly what we just set up, what I set up as an intention to happen this morning. Yeah. So that's something that everybody can do. Get up, set a clear intention first thing at the start of the day for what you want to happen. Not a specific outcome. Focus on the process. As in for me, I just want this to be a perfect process. I just want this to be a perfect experience. That's it.
Yeah, and I want to clarify, when you use the word perfect, it's not perfection as in I have to get it all right. I think that perfect, when I hear you use that word, and correct me if I'm wrong, is limitless. It's beautiful. It's that
and true.
Yeah, and true. Absolutely. You know what I think?
The thing I work with.
Yeah, no, one big quick before you go in.
Yeah.
I think what's interesting in what you just shared is when you set your intention, you set that clear, coherent goal. You're also setting an identity for yourself that says, I am this. I know my friend Jacko and I have had this conversation. He is an athlete. He has a core belief that he is an athlete. And so, everything that he does in his 1,000 daily choices in a day help him to have that core belief that he is an athlete, and he has, the 20-pack of abs and can do superhuman things physically with his body. Is it a bit of that? Like, when you set that clear, coherent goal, you're setting an identity, that core belief of who you are, so that your brain is finding the neural pathways and saying, here are the data points that say, yes, this is me. This is who I am. I am worthy of making 7 figures. I am an athlete. I am worthy of blah, 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 blah. Is that what's going on?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so your brain, like I said, your brain will just make it real. You put the belief in, the brain will make it real. So let me give you a quick example, just so based in movement again, because this, again, and you can apply this to anything. You can apply it to business, you can apply it to sport, apply it to relationships. So I've got a lady that I work with physically, so I see her face to face. She's 72. She's 72, and she's a weapon. She's known as Ali the Weapon. She can do muscle ups. She can do handstands. She's for a 72-year-old grandma. She's amazing.
Incredible. But
she wanted to do a back bend. She wanted to do like a back bridge. So bending over, hands on the ground, feet on the ground, back arching up in the air. And she was nowhere near it. Too stiff. Couldn't get the shoulders over. Just absolutely couldn't do it. So we regressed it. We put her feet up on a box, and she could actually hold a position with her head. She couldn't get her head off the ground. Her head was resting on the ground, and the hands were barely flat. Like there was big, obvious restrictions in range of movement. And so what I do when I'm working with people, and this again applies to anything, we're just applying it to movement here, but we'll just ask the nervous system, ask the brain, ask the mind, what do you need? Okay, here's our goal. This is what we want. What do you need? Where's the weak link in the chain that we need to fix up? And so we asked for her, like, does her system need flexibility? Does it need extra strength? Does it need neurological calibration? Does it need to be potentiated? Does it need like a boost of extra strength? Does it need a belief? in her case, it just came up as a belief. Now, interestingly, we got a message from her superconscious which basically said, you need to look at your granddaughter. She pulled a photo, it guided her into her purse and pulled out a photo of her granddaughter. And she had just been telling me that her granddaughter looked at her in amazement and wonder because grandma could do handstands. And we said, well, there's your message. Literally, your superconscious is telling you that you need to look at yourself in the same way that your granddaughter looks at you, with amazement and wonder, which was really poignant because she's really hard on herself. And so then we said, okay, so what would it be? What would it be? What would it take for you to look at yourself in this situation in amazement and wonder? And it came back that she needed to look at herself like she was an Olympic gymnast. Now, she's a 72-year-old grandma who has absolutely no context of ever having been an Olympic gymnast. She has nothing like that in her physical conscious awareness. But her mind can build a picture around that. So we put in a new belief, the belief that was 100% right, according to what her superconscious was telling us, that her subconscious mind needed, was that she was as fit, as strong, supple, flexible and coordinated as an Olympic gymnast. We put that in, put her back on the box, and she literally pushed herself up. Her feet were up on the box, but she pushed herself off the ground, hands were flat, back arched way more. Like, it was an amazing result. But the incredible thing to me, the most important incredible thing to me about it was, as soon as she did that, I was there going like, okay, that's fantastic, amazing. You know, you don't actually look like an Olympic gymnast, but that's an incredible change in 10 seconds.
Yeah.
But then when she came down, the first thing she did was let out this almighty groan and go, it's terrible. Like, I'm not an Olympic gymnast. It was so hard. So she literally told her subconscious mind. So her subconscious mind is trying to figure out, it's trying to make this new belief real. And it's just taken a really big step in the first step in that direction. And if she encourages it and pats herself on the back and says, wow, amazing, and celebrates that, because the subconscious mind is like a child's mind, that little kid in there is going to look and go, oh, so I got that right. Okay, I'm on the right track. And it'll keep producing more changes. But the first thing she did was go, oh, terrible. And that poor subconscious mind, which actually was getting it right, then looks and goes, oh, okay, I think I got it. I thought I was getting it right. I think I'll try something else. And so we do that a lot. You know, we sometimes we actually get it right. We take the right steps. We move ourselves in the right direction by influencing the subconscious mind. But then, because we've overlaid our own projection of what we think the result has to look like, and what our subconscious produces is pretty much always going to be different to what our conscious projection is. When they don't match up, we can then just knock it on the head. And so that's a big take home. Be really careful to just don't project. We don't need to project. We don't need to be outcome focused or outcome oriented. We can just be process oriented. That really messes with people's heads sometimes when you say that, because people say identify themselves as a goal focused individual. Like, yes, create the goal, that's fine, but then you don't have to sit and focus on it, because you're locking yourself into one conscious pathway there. Create the goal and then just go back to the process and just allow the process to unfold as perfectly as it needs to. And you can find that there's your flow state.
I think that analogy is beautiful, and thank you for sharing it, because I think we've all been in situations similar to that, whether in work or just in our regular everyday life. And how many times have we ever gone into a sales pitch meeting or a competition of some sort, or about to take the stage and speak at a conference, and you've already determined the outcome to be negative, right? You've already said in your head, oh, this is going to be a disaster, or no, they're never going to like it, or they're not going to have a clue what I'm talking about, or whatever.
And then get to the end and go, see, told you.
Right, yeah. You predetermined the success, right, or failure of a situation before you even tried. And I think that's a gentle, wonderful reminder for us to not predetermine. It's almost, I've heard other people speak of this, and I've seen it true in my own life. It's a concept of surrender, but also holding loosely a situation. I think whenever I personally try to hold tight, grip it with an iron fist, that's where things start to crumble. But if I can hold it loosely, that points back to Buddhism, right?
Yeah, let's address it with a question. So those conscious projections. So I make a goal and I decide what it needs to look like.
Yeah.
I decide my goal and I decide what it needs to look like, and then I decide the process. And that's when we're working with this very limited level of mind, the conscious level of mind, which is 5%. 5% of what we've got available.
Right.
So, and basically I've decided how it needs to look. I've probably decided I go back to memory and experience, and I create a plan from all of my memory and my experience that I think can be successful in getting me to my goal. Okay, great. Sounds good. And I think that's probably most success manuals. That's 5%. I'm accessing 5% of what's available. So if we look at it and say, if I have a connection to all the information in the universe and I literally have another 95% untapped going on in this most magnificent organ that's going on, in this limitless organ that's going on in my head and that we don't fully understand, why would I limit my goal about what's actually possible and the ways to get there and the way that it needs to look and how it can unfold? Why would I limit that to only my conscious mind, which is 5%? Why could I think of any good reason why I wouldn't just let go and say there's more available? You know what? I'm just going to be open to that.
That's like having a tool belt and going, well, 95% of these tools, I don't really need it. I think I'm only going to need the screwdriver. Good luck.
Yeah. So, and I say this to clients when we're working with relationships, because in relationships, so we work on relationships, we work on intimacy and all this sort of stuff. And again, it's all perception. It all comes from the mind.
Yeah.
And so I've said a few times now, when we're dealing with sex and intimacy, we say, I would very, very happily put my hand up and say, I'm happy to just accept that I have never experienced the most mind-blowing levels of sex and intimacy in my life. Because no matter what I've experienced and however good my sex life has been in the past, I'm leaving the door open to something much, 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 much greater. And I think most people that I work with sort of come at the process and say, okay, things were good for a while and we'd like to get back to that. Like, okay, things were good, but was that the best imaginable? Was that the best that it could possibly be? And do we even have an awareness of that? So, you know what? How about we just, like you say, surrender and just allow? Just actually, like I said, create the intention, create the clear, coherent thought. You can create the goal, but then just align with the process. And that process, again, is just being open and letting the mind do what it needs to do, create the beliefs that we actually need to fulfill that outcome. And then, as I said, let the universe take care of the details. You can say that the mind is limitless. Just let the mind take care of the details if that feels more comfortable for you.
Yeah.
But essentially, we don't want to block.
So I want to shift gears a little here. And again, take a deep breath, anyone that's listening. Yeah. I want to talk about collective consciousness. It's a term that people may or may not be familiar with. And before we sat down to have this conversation, you and I spoke about the analogy of a flock of birds. Talk to me about collective consciousness and what does that mean to us as humans and to us as business owners?
Okay, so collective consciousness is what you see when you see a flock of birds, thousands of birds all flying, and they're all flying as one. All of them turn at the same time.
It's beautiful.
And you see it with it's beautiful. We see it with like schools of fish, and it's like none of them seem to be bumping into each other. Nobody's falling out of the sky. No fish are sort of bump. Everybody turns at precisely the same moment. It's like they're all operating from the one mind, and so now we have that. We're connected to that. We are, and if this makes sense, you are universal consciousness. So you are the universe. You are universal consciousness. There's that one mind, which we're all connected to, but you're also individuated. So you are a completely and wholly integrated and individuated biological reference point for universal consciousness. And we can sort of just take time to allow our mind to sort of expand around that and try and let that sink in for a moment. But so you are individuated and you're completely integrated. So it means that we're affected by others. We're affected by the thought fields and the atmospheres of belief of others. And all of those thought fields and all of those atmospheres of belief of those individuated consciousnesses, they all add together and create this one consciousness, this one human mind, this one global mind. And so we look at that for all kinds of things, but it largely humanity exists with limitation. We've built all these rules around these things that we believe that can't happen. and things that just can't be true. And then we subscribe to those. And then we subscribe to those via absorption. We literally just absorb them by witnessing other people live out those and play out those limitations. So we're born with kind of none of those, and then we just start downloading them from our parents and then, from other people around us. And a lot of those limitations are around, nothing's perfect, life's hard, life's challenging, life's, good, childhood's fun, but then it's tough in adulthood, and then, old age sucks and then you die.
Right.
And the thing is, it's not just a matter of saying, well, that's it, I'm going to change my belief. Because we do need to do that if we want to sort of break free of some of these limitations and these physical limitations about decrepitude in the body, about the body just breaking down at a certain age and tissues aging at a certain time. Aging is one huge limitation that I think is largely a learned process.
Yes.
The more I go into it, there's all these stories, written in ancient texts about human, ages in human civilization, when people were living much, more aligned with universal consciousness and living much, 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 much longer lifespans. And the more, or say, the less aligned we are with those levels of universal truth or with that universal mind, well, then the faster things are going to break down. And like I said, it's not just a matter of us just changing our beliefs and saying, well, that's it, I'm going to switch and believe something different. Because then I go out in the street and I look and see everybody else acting out those same beliefs. And so I download those programs just by watching them and being absorbed and just absorbing them.
Data points.
And exactly. And so I've got a traumatic brain injury client who is really rigid. He's much older and he's really rigid in his thinking. And I get this sometimes with OCD cases and anxiety cases, and you'll have the yeah, but. And it's like when we talk about aging and function going down, I'll offer him, and his mind is literally there saying, I'm ready to change. I'm ready to, give you a new function. You can have some function back. And we'll say, you can have this. And he'll literally sit in the chair and say, but nobody else has got it. Everybody, because I see it. Everybody else is getting older and slowing down. And, well, do I even really need it? It's like we'll defend those limiting beliefs,
yes.
And so to break free of it, we need to see the limitlessness that we have available, but we need to be able to see it in others as well, whether they're expressing it or not. And this is the thing, and it kind of makes the world a better place, is if you are that limitless level of mind, and you can say, if that for you is God's level, if that's consciousness, if that's spirit, if that's just higher self, however you see it, however you call it, if you are that limitless level of mind, you can't just see it in yourself. If you walk out into the street and you can see that spark of limitlessness in everybody else, well, then you're seeing yourself reflected. And when you see yourself reflected, well, then now you're downloading that same program back and reinforcing it into yourself. And so that's a huge thing. So don't look at the limitations of others, and if we feel charged by other people and things that other people are doing in any way, then the place we always need to start is the self. That's just something about me. That's just a piece of me that I haven't integrated back as whole yet, if I'm not able to see the limitlessness in somebody else.
So let's pause there, because I think that's really critically important. So when you see something in someone else that you're like, oh, God, that triggers me, or, oh, gosh, why haven't they figured that out, or, oh, gosh, whatever, it's potentially a mirror for yourself. What you're seeing is yourself in them, or in their actions or behaviors or thought patterns and things like that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, we can apply this to business, and we can apply this to how it works in the workplace. But essentially, if you feel a charge for someone,
yes,
then we are born whole, and there's whole energy, which is perfect. And then when we have wounds, or we have trauma, or we just have these life experiences, we split that whole energy into a dualistic energy. So we split something from being whole and perfect into a positive and a negative. And then we create perceptions around that. And so if I see something in someone that just charges me and triggers me, makes me feel like, I don't like that person, really, that's just a piece of me that I'm uncomfortable looking at. That's a piece of me that they're expressing that I've buried and I don't want to look at. So when I see it in someone else, it makes me feel horrible. So the place to start is me. The place to start is always the self. Now, if I'm in the workplace and I need to get things done, and I've got these different projects, and and I need a clear, cohesive unit, I need this one level of mind where everybody's functioning on the same level, and there's just intuition, and everybody knows when different people need to be included in a project or copied in on an email, and so we can all go into that flow state about the process. Well, if everybody recognizes that whenever there's a charge or something goes wrong, it's like, okay, that's not actually you, that's me. I can fix that. I can change that. And then, oh, look, wow, magically you changed. And now we can go back into flow again. So, and that whole one level of mind, that's something that, again, that I do and work with different clients, and I've done with a few different businesses. And what we do is we're integrating the beliefs of the consciousness of the organization. So the consciousness of the business, which is the business's mission, the business's vision. So what the business is striving to achieve, that's the consciousness of that organization. And if we can embed that into the employees or into the people that work within that, then everybody's operating about the same belief system. They're operating about at the same vibration. And when they're in the same vibration, then you're creating that collective flow state. And it's really interesting, some of the things that I've found. So people have found things getting more efficient and just more harmonious in the workplace. But I had one last week where the company they needed to recruit, and so they were putting in beliefs into everyone in the organization about the right people, the perfect people for our space find us, or the perfect people find themselves here. And one girl resigned shortly afterwards. And then speaking with the owner of the business, it was just like, yeah, no, that was 100% right. Actually I hadn't realized, but she really wasn't the right person.
Yeah.
And when we crystallized that, we made that more clear in the mind, it made it more clear for her, and she left, which ultimately wasn't what I was projecting as the perfect result. But that ended up actually being, it might be short-term pain, but it's actually a long-term perfect result. And it's like, and that universal consciousness knows that. So, and that's kind of what we're working with.
And I imagine also, as a leader myself, I have teams and people. It is top down to show and reflect, and you have to do the work. You can't just sort of delegate it off to other people. So I can see the truth in that, and I imagine and actually challenge anyone that's listening, thinking about your teams in the workplace, or even your teams in your household, your kids or spouse or otherwise. Are you a flock of birds working in perfect unison, or are there things that are not aligned? People bouncing into each other, triggering and falling in the sky.
Falling out of the sky.
Right, all the things, I think everybody wants a cohesion. They want alignment. They want to each individually be in their flow state. And I appreciate what you said there about focusing when you see something that's triggering you and someone else, focusing on yourself first, because you ultimately only have control over yourself, your thoughts, your behaviors, your actions, your choices. You cannot control other people's, right? Especially in the workplace. So yeah, it really resonates with me when you say it in that way.
Yeah, look, and I think that's that limitless ability. Like you can, again, via that, you can bring others into resonance with you. And look, I do this with conflict resolution. You can hold that clear, coherent thought for peace, perfection, love, life, and just say, you know what, like this person is really, really agitated at the moment. I can see they're really aggressive. I'm not going to go over there right now and ask this question or speak to them, because I'm very likely to sort of cop a bullet right between the eyes. Yeah. So, you know what, I'm just going to sit for 2 minutes and I'm just going to get clear about the vibration that I want this person to experience, which is peace, perfection, just good intentions, loving intentions, or, I want to hold intentions for this person's highest good, and my intention is that they'll get it. And what that does, and I use this in parenting, I use this with my kids, is I think I want to be a more highly evolved parent. Yes. So when my kids do something that makes me feel like I want to express one of I want to express my parental software, which is, my parents used to just smack. And I look at that and think, okay, I want to do better than that. Yes. But I don't know how. How do I do that? All I've got in my DNA, all I've got in my experience is like mum and dad would just pull the belt out. So how do I do this? How do I do this so they get the message? It's like, okay, I'm just going to set a clear intention for understanding, perfection in communication, and a more highly evolved level of mind as a parent. That's my intention. And then when I go and sit down, what happens is I find myself, because I'm sticking to my intention, instead of just jumping off and yelling like my mother used to, or, speaking quietly and then pulling the belt out like my father used to, yes. I find myself thinking, actually, I don't know what to say here. I don't know how to do that. I'm just going to listen for a moment, because I haven't what I've got that's about to come out is an old program. It's not what I want to say. So I'm just going to listen to my kid for a moment. And then the answer comes to me. And then I find myself, I get to deliver the message, and I find we end up sort of hugging, and the child gets the message, and then I get the message coming back to me from the child saying, I just need to make the right decision. That's what I actually need to do, isn't it, Dad? Yeah, no, it is, mate. You just need to think about it, and they're giving it back to me rather than me just having belted them and sent them to their room crying and saying, don't do that again. And the child's really no wiser.
Yeah.
And so then I have changed that behavior in that individual via my intention, because I've changed myself first, and that changes the conscious interaction.
Brilliant. Scott, I can only imagine what it is like to be in your household if you were my dad. Or, I would just think, imagine it has to be, it has to be inspirational. And I also imagine that you probably flub it up every now and again too, because you're human.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
We're human. Absolutely.
We're all human.
Yeah.
And so I
completely.
I think it's so great that you have shared so much insight in today's episode. And I really encourage you guys, if whatever Scott has shared intrigues you, I highly recommend checking out his website, thebrainguy.co. You can also find him on Instagram and Facebook. We'll put all those links in our show notes over at thesimplifierspodcast.com. There's so much to this, and I think bit by bit, you can break this down into small, easy to understand bits and pieces. And it's like you say, you're just taking that deeper download into your thought process, your brain, your beliefs, and into everything, your subconscious. And bit by bit, more and more becomes lit up and inside you, right?
Absolutely. And I was going to say, look, I'm really grateful to get to be here and have the conversation. I love what you're doing with, simplifying things, because really what I speak about and what I talk about and what I work with people is something that people view as an incredibly complex topic, but that's just our human perception. We make things more complex than they need to be, because we've placed a value on that. We've placed a limiting belief, or we believe that something can only be good if it's really complex, and you can only earn a really, really good wage or a good earning income if nobody else can understand what you're doing, because then there's nobody else that can have that job. But something like the brain, we can just make it more simple. Just slow it down, and just understand just the parts that we need to. We don't need to understand all the circuits and all the different pathways. We can just access the parts of the mind that we need, and we do that via that clear, coherent intention. So just hold clear, coherent intention, continue to place your attention on that intention, and then just be in the process. And that's basically all we need to do.
To achieve flow state is possible, and I think that there are so much to this that it's just it's as if you're taking an onion and you're peeling back one layer at a time to get true to the center and the core. There's so much that we have conditioned onto our life, and we've put those layers on as either protective measures or coping mechanisms or otherwise. So I really appreciate that. And I encourage you guys, if you're listening to this and you are intrigued by Scott and the work that he does in the world, again, go to his website. You can find more information, see loads of videos there as well. But also, he does stress transformation sessions with clients that help people, and I've gone through one myself, to help you get to the core of whatever belief or stress is sitting inside you, and help you, again, to take those layers off of it, to diffuse the intensity of it, to see what truly is at work, and to get relief, I think, as well. So again, his website is thebrainguy.co, and you can find more information there and in our show notes. So Scott, I have a few questions as we wrap up. And again, I'm so grateful for your time and for your wisdom and sharing this today. So these questions I'd like to ask everybody that comes onto the podcast. First and foremost, what is one book or blog that you're reading these days that's either inspiring you or poking holes and challenging your belief system?
So I would say, I think the greatest book that I've read that just challenges the belief system and just makes us break things down and just open up to a whole new level of mind is The Energy Cure. The Energy Cure by William Bengston. It's one of those books that you just can't put down. I won't say too much about it other than it's a page turner. You can't put it down. And it will really, if you want to expand your mind about what's possible, because once you have that level of expanded awareness, you can apply that to any area of your life. It doesn't have to be just health and healing. But that's an incredibly interesting book. Amazing stories in that one.
Good.
And I think anything that where you have guys who are, or people who are breaking down these complex topics like the brain, the mind, and then applying and kind of crossing that bridge, which is what I try and do, really cross that bridge between science and spirit, because, it's like true science and true religion, or true science and true spirit, they're not arguing, they're not fighting, they're trying to say the same thing.
Yes.
It's just the people who've aligned with what we call pseudoscience or fake science, who, they're cheering for their team, like very passionately. And so they say there can't be any spirit, or there can't be any, religion involved in that. And the same thing with the people who are kind of involved in religion for the masses. It's like a lot of those people, basically say like, no, it's our way and there's no other way. Like what science is saying is just not right. But true science, true religion, they're pretty much, they're trying to say the same thing. So anybody who's like Joe Dispenza, Deepak Chopra, those guys, I think are amazing.
Yeah, 100% agree. I am aligned with that as well. I don't think one or the other is right or wrong. I think there's a mix of both. And again, that brings back to the neutrality of things. I think that when you realize that, you don't get sucked into the polarization in society of Republicans versus Democrats, black versus white, this versus that. It's just, is it a trope? Is it something that's a distraction? Is it a noise? Is it possible that both could be equally beautiful and wonderful and wise? So,
and we don't need the answers. Just place your attention on it.
Yeah.
And just be with it.
Yeah. Oh, I feel like we could have a part 2, but Scott, I have to keep on target. Keep on target. So the next question is this. Tell me, who's one person in your personal circle that you just feel is up to brilliant things? We could shine a spotlight on them, and who knows, maybe one day we'll also have them on the podcast.
So there's a lovely girl I know by the name of Jackie Bressick, who is an entrepreneur, and she's just amazing. So I have worked with Jackie for a long period of time, and she's one of the people who kind of experiences that limitless level of mind, because she saw the value in what we were doing early on, and we were just clearing pain early on for her, but then she just saw her life improving and literally just going into flow. And so everything I've talked about, she lives. And so she is constantly sending her friends and people to me, because she's constantly just walking around. Well, she's not sending them. There's people asking, what's the secret? What's going on? But she's just constantly walking around saying, like, I've literally just never been so happy. And my business is in flow. My business is booming. Everything, I've got the right people that I want. Everything's, is just perfect. And she's just literally just living everything that I've been talking about. And it's like she's just kind of committed to a process and just said, like, you know what, we're up-leveling the mind. I'm just going to come back each week and up-level the mind and just keep going, and just whatever happens, happens. And again, she's just put herself in that process. And so she's been just doing amazing things, just in business, but just life and happiness, which I just think is beautiful.
Love it. Well, we will link her up in the show notes. If people want to find her and see what she's up to, you can find that over at the simplifierspodcast.com. So I believe gratitude and simplicity go hand in hand. What are you grateful for today?
What am I not grateful for today? I'm grateful to get to be here and do this. I'm grateful for the work we got to do beforehand.
Yes.
I'm grateful for the perfection in every single moment of the day, and I am incredibly grateful just to be able to have that awareness, because I sort of look at, I guess, all the years that I went without having that awareness, and it's a beautiful space to get to exist in. So I'm probably most grateful for having the awareness of the perfection that I now get to experience in every single moment.
And I'm grateful for you. And I appreciate whenever I see people who are truly in a flow state with the work that they do in the world. And work doesn't necessarily be your career, but like the work you do, the life task, as you say, it's beautiful to watch and experience as well. Yeah.
Thank you. It's lovely. I really appreciate it. It's lovely to get to be here and share it.
Yeah. So his website is thebrainguy.co. And again, the links are in the show notes. My final question for you today is this, Scott. And again, thank you so much for your time. Someone somewhere is listening to you and I right now, and she's going, wow, maybe there is something to this. Maybe there is something way bigger that I had not even had a moment in my super busy schedule to even comprehend. What's one teeny tiny little thing you could whisper into her ear right now just to encourage her in this moment?
I would just say, so slow down, look to slow down, slow the mind down, and just get past that conscious noise, that conscious level of stress. And the one that I encourage, well, there's a bunch of different ones I encourage, but one that I think is really, really helpful for that is just a whole brain posture. Cross one ankle over the other, cross one wrist over the other. Put your palms together and interlace your fingers and just sit for a couple of minutes. And just sit for a couple of minutes. And then once you've sat for a couple of minutes, the world will have slowed down. You will have equilibrated the electrical noise across the hemispheres in the brain, and you'll feel a little bit less stressed. You'll feel a little bit slower. And then if you want to start asking for truth and holding some clear intentions or just trying to get some intuition, that's a much better space to start from. So if you've listened all the way through to the end of this, now then you have my gratitude, my deep appreciation and gratitude. Yes. But if you're still listening, then I would say, and you're thinking, how do I do this? Where do I even start? That's a fantastic place. Whole brain posture, cross one ankle, cross a wrist, palms together, interlace the fingers, and then just sit quietly for at least a couple of minutes and then just hold an intention. Hold intention for what you want. Might be truth, might be perfection, could be peace, whatever you decide that you want to hold, and then answers can start to come from there.
Scott, big love to you.
Same right back. Thank you very much, Mary.